off, thank everyone for tuning in and taking the time to come in and listen to me ramble a little bit. Hopefully we'll be able to boost your confidence a little bit and make sure you know everything on how to make sure your exemption is safe for the year. I guess a little introduction about myself. I'm Clay Whitfield. I'm the region manager over here in what we call Pines and Prairies, kind of our East Texas, Houston, Montgomery area, and be presenting today. And so hopefully be able to teach you a thing or two. So a little bit of overview. First thing, if you're a little bit behind, don't panic. There's still plenty of time. You can go through, and there's still a lot of activities you can do to get in compliance if you haven't already gotten in compliance. Hopefully you are, but if not, we can help you out and make sure that you are taken care of. The wildlife management valuation is activity based, so it's not results driven. So you want to be able to prove what you're doing and show that you are actively managing. Wildlife's not meant to be more difficult. We kind of joke around and say if it's harder than traditional ag, you're doing something wrong. It's not a get out of jail free card, but at the same time, there is some activities that you have to do and some work involved. It tends to make the appraiser job a little more difficult. They drive by your property, they look over, they can see a hay field, they can see cattle out grazing around. Wildlife management, they drive by and look at that property. There's no telling where your nest boxes are, where your feeders are, where your fire ant treatment's been put down. And so, it does kind of tax them a little bit more and make it harder for them. So any record keeping you do and can provide them makes their job easier and kind of keeps them off your back a little bit more. Like I said, the keeping good records makes this thing all that much easier. So your general requirements and expectations, what the county is expecting out of you. You got to do 3 out of the 7 practices or categories at the very minimum. We always recommend doing 4 or 5 activities just to be safe. And the way that comes down, it's 1 activity out of at least 3 categories. Proof of meeting the required intensity, that can go as far as, say the nest boxes out here in East Texas. Most of them are 1 for every 3 acres on your nest boxes. Out in the hill country, it's more around 1 for every 5 acres. So making sure your numbers line up and you're doing everything to the intensity that is required. You want to make sure the activity was done in the year for which it's being requested. So if they're asking for a 2019 annual report at the beginning of this next year, then you want to make sure that you're showing them activities that have been done in 2019. The fire ant treatment you did in 2018 isn't going to count for your 2019 report. You got to do it every single year. So this is just showing that you are actively managing, or if Plateau's doing it or your tenant, whoever you may have hired, just make sure you have documentation, you can prove it. We had Fort Bend County that we talked to the other day, and they made a statement that kind of stuck with me and said, you want to be able to prove or convict yourself of being in wildlife management in the court of law. So just make sure that if someone ever, questioned whether you're in wildlife or not, you want to have enough proof to go ahead and convict yourself and find yourself guilty of being in it. So just something to think in mind. And you can see there at the bottom, do it or get help to ensure it gets done. There's a lot of money at stake here with this valuation. You don't want to lose it. So make sure it's getting done and that it's up to the standards of the county. So why it's important to keep your good records. I mentioned the annual report and be able to prove all this. You're likely going to be asked for it at some point. More and more counties every year are asking for the annual report. Some counties ask for it every couple of years, some ask for it every 3 years, but I'm seeing it more and more often. They're going to it every single year. And so if you're going to go ahead and write the annual report and have it on file, you might as well submit it. So make sure you have it ready. It doesn't take a whole lot of time if you keep up with it throughout the year, or if you want, have Plateau do your annual report for you. We'd be glad to help you and kind of keep you up to date and make sure everything looks good on it. It can be hard to catch up in both compliance and management goals. So like I mentioned earlier, if you are behind, it's not the end of the world. but it's a whole lot easier and less stressful if you do the stuff throughout the year. So what the county expects and how they inspect it. Probably the most popular option here is going to be the annual reports. Like I said, more and more counties are asking for them every year. It's their way of checking in. A lot of reasons for that is, or one of the main ones, is that they're just understaffed and they don't have the staffing or the manpower to get out there and inspect every property. So they're kind of relying on you to go ahead and help them out and send these annual reports in. And that way they don't have to go to every single property. There are some counties that will come out and do some site inspections. Like I said, I'm in the Pines and Prairies region, so I'm familiar with these counties out here. I know Colorado County will come out after your first year. So let's say you applied in 2019, around now or the beginning of 2020, they're going to come out and do an inspection, make sure you're doing your activities. And as long as you're doing it, they're not going to have any problems with you, and everything's going to be fine. But if they find out that you haven't been doing your activities, they're going to come out and yank your exemption away from you. I know Brazos County comes out every 3 years, does it just like a residential. They do a little inspection every 3 years on a rotation, and they're expecting to see everything and make sure everything's up to par. And then plan updates. So every 5 years or whenever there's a change in size or change in acreage, you might want to update your plan to update the intensities, and you're going to be required to refile anyways if you change size or ownership. So, the updates are good to keep in mind, or if you have any major changes, it's always a good idea to update the plan. So some tools of the trade. The wildlife management plan is going to be your number one. Having a good plan will make your life a whole lot easier. Our plans are definitely easy to follow and very detailed, and helps identify what you're going to do and lets the CAD know what you're going to do. A camera is the second most important tool. Most everyone has one in their pockets these days, so it's easy to capture these moments and document your activities. You can, if you're out treating your fire ants, go ahead and take a picture of the fire ant mound and put some poison on it, some fire ant poison, and then go ahead and take a couple pictures of it, of the treated mound. You don't necessarily need to take every single mound that you treat. I had a county tell me the other day, they're like, yeah, I had a customer of yours send in, hundreds of pictures of fire ant mounds. We don't need that, so send in a handful of them, but your camera is going to be your number one help in the field and documenting this stuff. GPS, it's good to have, but not a must. It's not the biggest and most important thing. It definitely will help. Maps, I'm a visual learner and big time visual guy, so I like a map. Makes things a little easier for me. I can see where I'm at. The logbook, if you have a Plateau plan, our resource notebook has all sorts of log sheets in there for you. This stuff helps keep you organized, helps you keep track of what you've done, and make sure you're not falling behind. And once again, so if your memory starts to fail you a little bit, you can look back and look at these log sheets, really know what dates you've done things, and like I said, just overall helps keep you organized. Calendar, same type of deal, more notes, tracking, just helping you remember when you did this stuff. And most of your cameras that you have on your phone usually have a timestamp, so it'll have a date and time, so that'll help keep you organized as well. Folders for keeping your receipts and then your reports. Funny thing about all these things I'm listing here, most of it's in your resource notebook that we provide you. So as long as you have your resource notebook, you can use that, and that's going to be your number one tool, and it'll help keep you organized. Here's an example of some of the log sheets that you'll find in that resource notebook. You can see there it has, the dates, what it is that the activity that you're doing, any activities that you've done. So like I said, these things, and you can find it there. You can see the link, plateauwildlife.com/forms. You can look on there and get these log sheets for yourself, but it really helps keeping you organized. So I highly recommend using these things. The maps, here's a sample of one of our maps. Like I said, I'm a visual type guy. So anytime I can look on a map, it makes my life a little easier. You can mark the locations. This is where the GPS comes in handy as well. Mark the locations where your nest boxes are, your waters, your feeders, the treatment areas of your brush control or fire ants, anything like that. Anytime you have any major projects completed, it's always a good idea to update the maps and go ahead and send those to the county. I always like to treat the county as your best friend. Let them know what you're doing, keep them up to date, and as long as you're doing that, you won't have any problems. The county's usually there to help you. A lot of people think these appraisers are kind of intimidating and scary, mean people, and they're really not. Most of them are pretty friendly. And as long as you approach them and say, hey, I just want to make sure I'm doing this stuff right, they're willing to help you and give you the advice you need. And obviously, us here at Plateau, we're willing to help you too. Just anytime you got any questions, feel free to call any of us. We'll be glad to help you out. So some good records, some good ideas of different ways to get your documentation. There's before and after photos. I mentioned that with the fire ant treatment. Also your feeder, take a picture of an empty feeder, fill it up, take a picture of it when it's full. Save your receipts for your bird seed, save receipts for your fire ant poison. Anything you buy that you think might help your case out, go ahead and save it, submit it. It's always better to be on the safe side and send a little too much, even if it doesn't count. The calendar records, showing the dates that all this work was done, and that will definitely help you out. Once again, the camera has a timestamp on it, so you should be able to help keep up with those dates. The receipts, so say you had someone come out and build a pond, or do some work on the pond, or do some shredding. Save your receipts or invoices from the people who come out and did that work. That'll help prove that you did it. Once again, if you're doing shredding or a pond, take pictures of before, take pictures after. Once again, with my visual learning abilities, I like seeing before and after. Helps you make a lot more sense out of everything. The maps, like I said, showing the maps, the different areas. There's tons of ways to do this stuff. But just document anything you think that might be important and might help you out. Go ahead and document it. You want to have as much as you can. So getting into these activity categories, hopefully y'all are mostly familiar with these. I'm going to run over them again and maybe refresh your memory on them. You can see the 7 different ones. We'll go over each one of them, give you some of the more popular choices on what people are doing. Habitat control is our first category. So game population management, deer hunting. Lots of people are hunting on their properties. And if you're a hunter, this stuff's typically pretty easy stuff. Most hunters are doing way more than enough activities to qualify. If you're not a hunter, don't worry. We can certainly get plenty of activities through not hunting. If you want to keep this as kind of a wildlife sanctuary, that's I got a lot of customers that do that, and it's still an easy exemption to keep. So whether you're hunting or not, number of ways to do it. But if you are deer hunting, that does help count. There's also brush management. So, you can go around and kind of keep your invasive, undesirable brush species at bay. Looks like some cedar there in the picture. That's how I do things at my parents' house in Kerrville. We have little bit of acreage out there, and so I walk around with loppers and chainsaw and I chop down all the cedar regrowth. That's our brush management activity. Some people think of brush management, they think of this big, expensive, bringing dozers in and everything else. Doesn't have to be that way. It can be as large or small scaled as you'd like. You can see there where they piled up that brush that they were doing some controlling on. And that's actually going to double up and get you a supplemental shelter activity. You can do brush piles. So you can kind of, if you're going to do the brush work, you can go ahead and get some supplemental shelter out of it as well. Erosion control. This is always one that's kind of tricky for me to explain. Our biologists at Plateau, once they get on your property, can help explain a lot more and give you some different examples. But most commonly, everyone likes to have some water on their property and likes to have a nice little pond or tank constructed. So if you build a pond or a tank, that does count as an erosion control activity. And these count for 10 years of credit. So as long, and you make any repairs, if the dam blows out and you fix it, that starts over that 10-year clock. The reason it counts for 10 years, usually these activities are a little more labor intensive, a little more expensive. And then Obviously, the county's not expecting you to build a pond every single year. But you can get, like I said, the biologist can explain this a little better than I can, but most common practice is going to be building a new pond or tank. Predator control. This is typically one of the crowd favorites. Most everyone's doing it in some form or fashion. Feral animals, hogs, dogs, cats, whatever it may be, they are disruptive, mostly the hogs. Every county in Texas has hogs, and most every county has a problem with hogs. So you can trap them, you can hunt them, you can do whatever you want to try and eliminate them. Once again, it's predator control, not predator eradication. So you're not expected to remove every one. And as long as you can show that you're actively trying to manage these things, you don't necessarily have to be successful in harvesting or trapping any of them. Now, on the other side of that, if you are actively trying and you do actually have a hog problem, you're most likely going to be successful. So just, try your best, but if you're not getting any pigs, then, that's not the end of the world. Just be able to show that you are trying. Keep a journal, show what dates you were out hunting, what dates the traps were set. Take some pictures of the trap being set. Take pictures of any pigs that you harvest, or any pigs that you trap. Once again, documentation is the key to this stuff. The imported red fire ant control. So once again, if you're not the hunter, here's your alternate option. Most landowners are treating fire ants because who wants to step in fire ants? So the minimum intensity on this is going to be 10% or 10 acres, whichever is greater. And so you ride your Polaris, walk around the property, whichever way you want to do it. And when you see a fire ant mound, you sprinkle some fire ant poison on it. Once again, document it, take some pictures of it, save your receipts. Predator control, most everybody's doing some form of predator control activity. It's just figuring out which one best suits you. Supplemental water. So a lot of times people are going to think, going back to our pond construction, well, I got this pond, that's supplemental water. Not always the case. So to have supplemental water, you have to actually be able to supplement the water. So unless if you got your well tied into that pond or tank, then it could count as supplemental water, because in bad years like 2011 and your pond goes dry, you got to have a way to pump it in there to make it count for supplemental water. We also have our water tables that we sell, very popular out here in East Texas and the Hill Country as well, for varying reasons. Out in East Texas, we know we're going to get plenty of rain, and these things are going to stay full, and so it's they kind of maintain themselves. You kind of set it and forget it type of deal. Whereas in the Hill Country, they don't get much rain, so they want to capture as much as they can, and it really helps the wildlife to flourish when they have water. Water is one of your best assets you can have, and so the more water on the property, the better. And when it can count as an activity for you, that definitely helps. There's also the you can modify some troughs. So if you had an existing trough for your sheep or goats or cattle, whatever it may be, you can build a ramp going in and out of that trough. And now it's a wildlife-friendly water source. So it's going to count for your activities. As all y'all know that have troughs, you find some critters and you have to clean them out every so often. Now that you have a ramp, it makes it easier for them to get out and they don't drown in there. So that's why it's a little more wildlife-friendly, and it'll count. Supplemental food, another very popular choice. A lot of people think wildlife management, they think big game, they think deer, and your game species. Doesn't necessarily have to be that. A lot of our plans revolve around songbirds. And so under your supplemental food, it can be a bird feeder. That's, doesn't have to. A lot of people will think with your spin cast corn feeder, oh, I got my feeder out, that'll count as food. Most counties are looking at, they want a free choice feeder with a minimum 16% protein. So your spin cast corn feeders typically don't count. Talk with your county, see if they, accept it or not. I know out here in Montgomery County will let you do it out of a spin cast, because, he says everyone has one, so we're going to count it, but you got to feed twice a day for 5 seconds at a time with protein in there. So There are some exceptions, but you know, you can see our platform feeder there on the right. It's designed to be coon proof, and if any of y'all have tried to coon proof anything, you know that doesn't really exist. But it is coon resistant. It does a pretty good job keeping these coons off the platform and keeping the feed to its desired species and targeted species such as birds. On the left, you can see our quail station. It's another one of the activities that I like because you're kind of double dipping. It's our water table with a feeder in there as well. So you got supplemental food and water in that one station right there. Food plots is another good way to do supplemental food. A little more popular here in East Texas. Most of the requirements, I believe, are you got to do a spring and fall food plot. And so I think the minimum on that, don't quote me on this, but it's 1% of the total acreage. So if you got 100 acres, you got to do 1 acre of food plots. And it can be for deer, you can plant sunflowers for dove, any number of things. Once again, the food plots may be a little more popular out here in East Texas because we get rain like today. We're getting plenty of it with this tropical storm. And, you know, back in the hill country, they don't get so much rain and it's a little rockier soil, whereas we have some soils here in East Texas that are good for it. Supplemental shelter is another very popular choice. Nest boxes, I mentioned earlier, out here in East Texas, a lot of the counties are 1 for every 3 acres. Out in the hill country, it's more like 1 for every 5 acres. So, you know, if you have 25 acres in the hill country, minimum is 5. We'd recommend having 6 or 7 nest boxes just to be safe. Again, say that county wants to come out and do an inspection, and somehow these nest boxes grow legs overnight every once in a while and they disappear. And so that county comes out and you've only got 4 nest boxes hanging up because your other one disappeared. You're kind of in hot water. And so once again, having that 4th or 5th activity going on, it's not the end of the world for you. So you kind of want to do things above and beyond. Not only does it look good with the county that you're not just skimming by, but it also protects you a little bit. There's also the brush piles and slash retention. I mentioned earlier with the habitat control, you're doing brush management. You're doing the brush management work. Now you have all this slash laying around. Pile it up and make some brush piles, and that can double as supplemental shelter. Also, strip mowing, very popular out here in East Texas. I believe the hill country gets quite a bit of it as well. You know, you can see the picture on the right. You know, it may not look like a bunch of difference to us, but the difference in, you know, 3-4 inch grass and that 12-inch, 18-inch grass on the left makes all the difference in the world to a fawn or rabbits or ground nesting birds. You know, they get a little more comfortable going out feeding in the cut grass, and they can go back and hide in the tall grasses. So, you know, strip mowing is a popular choice under supplemental shelter. Our last category is going to be census counts. You know, out in the hill country, spotlight counts are pretty popular. Harvest data collection. So all the deer that you harvest, you know, if you're on MLD program, you're going to be doing this stuff anyways. You know, get some antler characteristics, score every single buck, weigh every buck and doe, age them, you know, get the weights on them, and keeping the census or some records that way will count as your census activities. It's also a songbird count. That's a service Plateau provides. You know, you can get one of our world-renowned birders out on your property, and they'll come out and help you identify all the different species you have. It's really kind of a neat deal to, 1, to go on, and then 2, it gives you a good baseline, and you can see how many species you have out there, how many numbers of them you have. And then as you go further down the line, 5 years from now, you can look back and see how your efforts are working and how your numbers are improving. And so it really kind of helps keep you up to date and give you some confidence knowing that what you're doing is helping out. You know, you can also do like an incidental observation count, where you basically keep a journal throughout the year on the different wildlife you see. You know, that can be a census count, or what's growing in popularity is remote camera surveys. So running trail cameras, you know, you just want to keep some pictures and kind of get a an ongoing log of what all you capture on your camera, and you can put that into a report, and that'll be your census count as well. So that's all the activities. Once again, do one activity out of 3 categories is the minimum. We recommend doing 4 or 5. Hopefully you are. And if you haven't done those yet, I'm going to show you some different timely activities here in a little bit that will kind of help you know what's still good activities to do right now. Here's a calendar. Once again, this should be in your resource notebook if you have a Plateau plan. And it shows you the best time of year to do different activities. This is going to be the most impactful. And so keep an eye on this throughout the year and do your activities during the suggested times. Really a useful tool. This might be on the website as well. If you want to go poke around over there, see if you can find, if not, like I said, if you have a Plateau plan, it is in your resource notebook. Very useful tool. So some different things you can do this time of year. Chemical control, prickly pear. I know our products and services team are out almost every day this time of year, treating the different prickly pears and trying to control them for some of our clients. There's also the deer surveys you can be doing right now. Always a good idea if you're a deer hunter and wanting to keep an idea on your numbers. Fire ant treatment. A great time. The spring and fall is best to do these. It's when the ants are most active and you're going to see the most success out of it. You can do your winter resident bird survey. This is when our birders go out November through February and get these kind of resident birds that come down for winter. We also offer some spring breeding bird surveys. Obviously now it's not the time to do those, but you could do the winter bird survey. So find yourself in a tight spot, the bird survey is a good option for you. Supplemental water, it's good to have this year round, especially during the summer, but you can start it now and animals will start getting used to it, start using it a little more, and this way next summer, and when they run out of water, they'll know where to come find some. Installing your nest boxes, hopefully you've done this already. If not, go ahead and do it. Get some nest boxes out there. It's a good, easy activity. They kind of take care of themselves as well. You clean them out once or twice a year, document whatever's in there. But other than that, they kind of hang out, and it's a good category or a good activity to help you reach your goals. And then your supplemental food and strip disking. So, a couple different activities you can do there. Supplemental food's always a good thing. Your deer hunters probably got their feeders running right now, and then make sure your birds have plenty of feed as well. Some additional activities that could be going on, your brush management. Let the weather cool down a little bit, do some brush management in the cooler weather. No need to kill yourself in the summer doing this stuff. Also the brush pile construction. So once again, those kind of go hand in hand. Your remote camera surveys for your census count, deer, pig, and exotic harvesting. Obviously deer season's coming up. So this is when a lot of that stuff's going to happen. Reseeding wildflowers and native grasses. A good time to start getting those seeds out. They can take a little while to take off, sometimes years and years. So it's a good time to get those out. The cut stump herbicide, that's a popular service that we offer. And then your tree and shrub planting is also another activity. So different ways Plateau can help you now. If you're needing a little assistance with any of this stuff, we have a wildlife management activities checkup. We call it a WMAC. Basically, it's one of our technicians coming out and going over everything with you and making sure that everything's up to date, and that everything's looking good. Basically to give you the confidence and reassurance that everything, you're going to be fine this year and moving forward. There's also the consulting site visit or plan review. You can have the biologist coming out to the property. He can kind of review anything, any major changes that you made. He can update the plan, doing it that way, actually coming out there. And it's always nice to have the biologist come back out to the property. I went on a site visit yesterday morning, and every time I go on one of these, I learn something new. And granted, it's new properties every time, but I always find it interesting and very educational when those guys come on the property. They can really teach you quite a few things. You can do the plan review by phone. Have one of our biologists have a phone conversation with you, have them help you review it and make any adjustments that you need. There's also the annual report. This is a great service provided by Plateau. We're doing a ton of these now for landowners, and we kind of stick with you throughout the year. You send us documentation throughout the year, and we put it into a nice organized report and send it to the county for you. And then we review all your documentation, let you know which activities you need to strengthen or which ones are good, which ones you need to focus on, and give you some reminders on time to do it. So it's really a great service. People that have had their annual reports done know what I'm talking about. There's also a service agreement. If you find yourself in a really tight spot, or you got into wildlife management, thought you could do this all, and now you're kind of realizing I don't have the time that I thought I would. This is something where we can help you. We have a full team of technicians that'll come out. They'll fill your feeders, they'll clean your nest boxes, they'll do your bird surveys, they'll do your fire ant treatment. They can do as much or as little as you need them to. So, if you're needing help, service agreement may be the way to go. If you got all this stuff under control, then good for you, and keep up the good work. But always know that you do have a backup plan if need be. You can get on our mailing list. We send out a lot of good reminders on when to do some different activities, when we have different sales on some of our services. And then obviously your account manager can help at any time. So if we wrote a Plateau plan for you, feel free to call me, Dusty Alexander in Hill Country South, Mark Hefner in Dripping Springs, and any of us be glad to help you and work through this. And if we don't know the answers, we're going to go to one of the biologists and get the answers for you. So if you have any questions, always keep that in mind. Feel free to call us. We're always here to help. That's why I hired us in the first place, was to help get you through this and make sense of it all. So don't be a stranger. Feel free to call us whenever. Like I said, we're always available. So a little bit more on the service agreements. You can have, like I said, we can help you as much or as little as you like. We could do a hands-free option, which is we go out and we're going to do 3 or 4 activities for you, and we're going to do your annual report. You'll know that everything's taken care of. You don't have to worry about the stuff whatsoever. We're going to document it all. We're going to submit it all to the county. It's done. There's the work share. Work split between Plateau and yourself. So maybe you can get out there and do some of these activities, and some of them you don't have time to do. We can go out there and split the difference for you. And then the lighten your load, we can do a minimum of 2 services, such as fire ant treatments and a bird survey. But they're customizable. We can do it however you'd like. So the price does vary, but we do have quite a few properties, 460. You can see there that we are currently working on that we have service agreements with. Those range from 5 to 5,000 acres. So no property is too small or too big for us to help you. So a good summary of this whole webinar. Record keeping is important. It is the most important thing you'll do as you're in wildlife management. You just want to keep your documentation and make sure everything's lined out and you can prove everything that you've done. You don't want to be caught not doing these activities or not able to prove them. That'd be the even worst case scenario. You did the activities, but you have no way to show that you did it. That wouldn't be a whole lot of fun. It doesn't have to be burdensome, but it does have to get done. So, this doesn't have to be extremely labor intensive stuff. Most of these activities you can probably knock out in a weekend or 2 and you're done for the whole year. But just make sure you get this stuff done. If you're doing it yourself, treat it as someone paying you to do it. Don't halfway do these jobs. Go ahead and do it to the best of your ability and make sure you're doing it wholeheartedly. Don't go just doing it halfway. So you'll get asked at some point to provide this documentation. Be prepared. I mentioned it earlier. They can ask you for, I think it's up to 3 or 5 years of annual report. So they could say, show me your annual report from 2017. So you need to have it on file. And my thought is, if you already fill out the annual report, why not go ahead and send it in? So if you got an annual report, send it in the county, kind of keep them off your back a little bit. You know, when you're showing them, when you're wanting to show them without them asking that you're doing these activities, they have a little more faith in you that you're not trying to cheat the system. So what if I'm not ready just yet? You know, you still got some activities you need to do. Hopefully you got some of them started. Worst case scenario, you haven't done anything yet, and we're running out of calendar. You know, start doing these activities, start documenting this stuff, get your log sheets in order, check your nest boxes, do a bird survey, camera survey, contact us. You know, that's the easiest thing to do. Ask us what you can do, different ways we can help. You know, we are always here to help and give you the advice that you need. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about our family of companies. You know, in Dripping Springs, upstairs we have Brown and Gresham, our attorney, our law firm. They're able to help landowners with any number of things. So if you have a legal issue as a landowner, these are the guys to talk to. They've been doing this for I don't know how many years, but they know the stuff in and out. Kind of some of their expertise is going to be your estate planning, condemnation, and eminent domain, things like that. Some of these pipeline issues that we're having, you know, they're real active in that. We also have a land group, Plateau Land Group. They're our real estate arm. Obviously, you have a good idea what they do, real estate. They buy and sell property. So if you're looking to possibly sell your property or looking to add on to your property or just buy an additional property, look at these guys. They have a great website. There's some fantastic listings on there right now. Go ahead, take a look over there. You know, you can always dream if nothing else. And then our newest company is Plateau Exchange. They handle 1031 exchanges. So if you're looking to kind of change properties, and you know, you can go through the Plateau Exchange, they can help you do that. So that's all I have for you. You know, here's my contact info. You can reach me on that 512 number at the office. There's my email as well. General inquiries you can send over to the Plateau email as well. And then, do we have any questions? And bear with me as I try and find, in case y'all asked any throughout the presentation. I am new at this and not great at technology. So, but I'll move back and put my contact info back up in case anyone needs it. And feel free to ask questions.